Nepal. Um, who was in the trip? Why did we choose this track? Kathmandu, a little bit about Kathmandu and the surrounding, just kind of show you what it looks like. In 2019, this is when we did the trip. Information about getting to the trailhead, anatomy of the different kind of trekking that you can do in Nepal, and just the hiking up. I'm not sure how far we are going to get to this, but yeah, Sue, you can just stop me when we come to a point. The next presentation, which is actually the presentation I approached to talk about, is on the descent. I became ill. Something that happened that I never thought that would happen. Just came out of nowhere. And about troubleshooting something in a country over there that is very different from where we live here. And I was trekking by myself. I didn't have a company. I didn't have anyone else. We were just me and my kids were doing it. And so how do you organize a rescue mission in the high altitude, in the Himalayas? And how does the rescue operation work in Nepal? You know, here we know we can call 911 and 15 minutes later, you know, there's the ambulance there, the fire department there, but that's not something that you can do there. So I'll just go over my experience of what I found out about all of this. So the first person on this trip is Linnea, my oldest daughter. Some of the people who here know her when she was a small child, or not small child, when she was a child. She was a 19-year-old college student. She came home after completing a second year in May. She had already made her summer plans. She was going to travel solo to China for several weeks. She was going to be in Beijing and being in Xi'an. And then she was going to spend 8 weeks in Kunming, which is in the southwest of China, up in the mountains. And because she was taking Chinese as major, and she was going to go and spend some time learning Chinese. She was going to come home for a week, and she was going to go back to school. She has already planned her life. The best way I can describe her is she's a very strong woman. I call her the V8 engine because that's a nickname I have. Where she can carry a 40-pound pack, and she can hike uphill at about 1.25 miles an hour, as long as the environment looks like that. She likes to hike when it's 20 degrees to 40, 50 degrees. Beyond that, you know, she gets overheated. She gets, you know, her face turns red, and she's done. She's like a true Minnesota person. I mean, she's hiking. This is the corkscrew part of the switchback in Grand Canyon. I had to go. I was introducing my kids to Grand Canyon. I had to make the trip in January, mid-January, to do this trip with her, because she would not be able to go anytime to Grand Canyon otherwise because of the weather. She's a very slow and steady hiker, and the prep time to do Langtang was maybe 2 days for her. She went to the William O'Brien State Park and wore her shoes and a backpack and walked around for 2 days, and that was all the prep, because she was in college up to that point. She understands what we are going to do is basically a lot of pain and suffering. This is not a vacation. And she also has the mental strength to overcome the physical pain and the suffering that we are going to go through this one. She knows there are rewards at the end of it, is just the raw beauty of the nature and solitude. She's not afraid of our vertical exposure. I mean, this spot is Clear Creek Trail in Grand Canyon. In the background, you can see the south rim. Between both of them, there's a 1,500 feet sheer drop off there, and heights never bother her. Travel experience, she has traveled to 18 countries by this time, both third world and first world. This is my youngest daughter, Lauren. She is 16 years old, and she was in her last year of high school. The best way I can describe her is she hikes with the style as the picture shows you. She has the solar panels, she has the iPod, she had music on one ear, she has different playlists to go up and downhill. When she's tired, she's kind of the tech girl. Her hiking speed is 2 to 2.5 miles an hour, and she can carry a 30-pound backpack, and she can walk uphill at that speed when the temperature is above 70. Now, we don't share any of these, as you can see with my oldest daughter. They are two different people. I call her the puppy dog because usually when we go hiking, like if you have ever taken a dog on a walk, after a while you let them go, the dog takes off and runs around the corner. 30 seconds later, you keep them coming running back to you. Like, hey, Dad, where are you? I couldn't see you. Are you okay? Okay. And then they go again. If you're doing a 1 mile hike, the dog has done 3 miles because it's going back and forth and back and forth. The same thing happens with Lauren on this trip. She was 45 minutes ahead of me on the trail, and she sat down for 45 minutes. She couldn't find me. Then she started calling my name. I didn't respond. She was packing and coming back down again, finds me, and she's asking me, Dad, are you okay? And I'm saying, I'm okay, honey. I'm just walking. My speed is, I'm a slow, steady hiker. Well, I was worried about you. And then she takes off. And then hour and a half later, she's back doing that again. Dad, I've been waiting for you for 45 minutes. Are you all right? Yes, I'm all right. So that's why I nicknamed the puppy dog. She is in training, I would say, about the concept of pain and suffering and the mental strength that you need to have to do something like this. She's also a science girl. When we did this trip in Grand Canyon, she was preparing for 6 months. She was going to the gym. She had upper body workout one day, lower body workout the other day, core workout. And she's talking about calories and food and proteins and all that stuff. Now, she became a last-minute addition to the Langtang Trek. She was not part of it. She has to finish her high school. She went and talked to her teachers and an advisor, and they let her go early so she could join us on the trip. Her preparation for this trip was zero. And she has traveled to 15 countries. Some of them are first world, and significant of them are in the third world. So she knows what she's getting into. This is her performing in high wire at Circus Juventus. So vertical vertical heights are not a problem for her. While they were in the US, I was in Zimbabwe. I have promised to go on a mission trip in Zimbabwe. And I left home 10 days before we started this trip. And I was going with a group from California, and I was in Zimbabwe on this medical mission trip. Here I am, and I can't speak Shona language, so there were local doctors interpreting me for the kids that we were seeing. And here's a kid after surgery. Parents usually carry their kids in the back. It's winter season. Winter means about 50 degrees, 60 degrees. They are all dressed up like Minnesotans over there because this is too cold for them. Here we are putting a child to sleep. And this is what we were doing there. A surgeon gave me the picture. We were working on cleft lip and cleft palate. In order to speak the Shona language, the kids have to have an intact lip and a palate because the way they pronounce words, if they couldn't get their face fixed within 5 years, then they will not be able to go to school forever. And their life would be forever changed. So this is what I was doing. I thought this was an interesting mural at the Children's Hospital. So here we are in Nepal. Both of my kids left several days before I arrived in Nepal. I wanted them to go there so they can adjust to time, get used to the food and water, get through the diarrhea part of it while we were there because we were on a very short period to be there. So they traveled from here to Dubai. They stayed in a overnight, and then they flew to Kathmandu. They went to the hotel, and they were kind of there for 2 days, sightseeing, walking around Tamil, and doing this stuff and getting used to that. And I flew there after I finished my mission trip and then joined them. The first order of business is going and getting your permits. And then we went to the trail, to the bus stop to get to the trailhead, which is uh, about 90 miles away from where we were, and it takes about a whole day to get there. On the day we arrived there, we found out there was a national strike, which we were not aware of, and the buses were not running. So we had to come back to the hotel again and try the next day. So we decided to go on another sightseeing trip in Nepal, and we went to what is called the Monkey Temple. As you can see, there are monkeys over here, and they are renovating the temple. The bottom rows are called prayer wheels. There are prayers written there. You kind of, with your hand, you swing, you roll them. And the thought process is, since Nepal lives in the top of the world, the prayers are carried over the wind and go around the world mainly for peace. Someone has given a banana, and monkeys do know very well how to peel a banana and eat a banana. These are I believe there are 800 steps to get to the top of it, something like that. My kids counted all of them.
858.
858, I'm corrected. So we are here getting to the top, and here's the temple. Here's the souvenir shop in the temple area. A lot of Tibetan artifacts and Nepalese artifacts. This is the view of downtown. Now, I was there about 30 years ago. It was hardly like this. It has expanded a lot, and also you can see the haze in the distance. Here they are that I was talking about. They are spinning the prayer wheels. This is just random pictures in walking around Nepal, the streets of Nepal. Here's a lady in the roundabout. She's actually grilling corn, and you can buy corn right in the middle of the roundabout, and kind of life goes on. Now, this is a blog that my daughter wrote after being in Nepal. And I'm just going to be quiet, and I'll give some time for people to read this. This is what a 19-year-old, my daughter, thought about Nepal, especially Kathmandu. I didn't ask her to read this post or write this. She just spontaneously wrote this up. People who have been in Nepal can really picture these things. And if you have never been there, and this is what it is. And I don't think I was in tears when I read this one, because this is what it is. And if you can't see this, then you shouldn't go there. So this is where we are in Kathmandu, where the red spot is, and Safrabesi is our trailhead. And Google Maps says it's 148 kilometers, which is about 90 miles. It says 5 hours and 40 minutes. When we went to the bus station, there was already confusion because people have bought tickets for the previous day they were there. Then they have sold the tickets for today. So they have double booked the buses. People were kind of rustling around trying to get on the bus. Because of the strike, the first part of the journey goes through the highway that connects, one of the highways that connects China to India. And pretty much all the trucks have stopped because of the strike. They were afraid to go there, and all the gas stations were closed. So they were back on the street, on the roads, and there was incredible amount of traffic. But despite of that, where the car sign is right up here is a fairly decent road. It takes about 1/3 of the time to get there, about 3 hours or something like that to get here. But then it's like a 7-8 hour drive to finish this distance. And the reason for that one is sort of magnify, this is what it looks like. And these are not the roads that we are used to. And I'll show you some pictures as we go along. And this is the end. And here is Safrabasi, this we were trying to get there. So this is the road that the squiggly road I was talking about. This is Trisuli River right next to it. And this is a two-way street, not a one-way street. As you can see, two buses will cross, trucks will cross, and they had to back up. You would be almost on the edge. Going to Safrabasi itself is an adventure without even the trekking part of it. Now, what has happened here is this bus has broken down. And basically the traffic is, we're not going anywhere. And here, it's not like you have a tow truck. There is no tow truck over there. The driver has to get down, and then a bunch of people had to get down, and they had to try to take the part out. And then they don't have new parts, and they had to go and fix it, and then come back and put it back together. And then we have to go. So here is, after about 2 hours of staying in the road, people got impatient. Now here's another bus trying to pass through this space. And I want you to point the attention to this guy on the top of the bus directing. There's a guy on this bus that is stuck, is directing. There are people yelling at the driver, and they're trying to get through it. And obviously they could not get through it. And we have to wait, this bus was fixed. And then we went on the trail. So getting to the trailhead is pretty standard like this. Sometimes rain comes, and then you have the trails are washed out, landslide, you may have to wait. So you just have to take a lot of patience with you. Now, I also want you to notice how close we are to the river. This is after 7 hours maybe in the bus on the small section that I showed you. This is a town called Dunji. I'm told we are about 5,000 feet above where we saw the river. So the road climbs way up on the high of the hills. And then eventually it comes down to the town of Safrabasi. And here it is. This is where we start the trail. And these are mules. From now on, these are the transport vehicles from here all the way to where we were going. If you need any transportation, there are no roads, none of them there. These are the only vehicles that are there to get you over there. This is a view from our hotel. We are about 10 miles away from the Chinese border or the Tibetan border. So we are further north, and you can see the river running through it. The Langtang Valley is right here in between these two mountains. So what is the anatomy of the trekking trails in Nepal? There are two types of trekking trails. One is called a valley trekking, and the other one is called a circuit trekking. So we all know snow falls in high elevation, it compresses, it turns into a glacier. They move down due to weight and gravity. At the terminal moraine, the glaciers start to melt, they create water, and it starts a river, and the river creates a valley. In Nepal, the rivers are called Kola. So it's Trisuli Kola or Langtang Kola. And basically the valley trek involves just walking along the river all the way to the terminal moraine. And usually you find a village, not at the terminal moraine, but usually on the lateral moraine for safety. And once you reach there, and then you just climb peaks around there. And they are called Ri, and then have a panoramic view. And you can climb many different peaks out there, and you can create your own itinerary from there. So the examples are Langtang, Gokyo Valley is in Everest, Lobuche Valley is in Everest. This is the valley you have to get to the Everest base camp. There is Sum Valley. As opposed to circuit trekking, like the word says, you don't start and follow this. You're following a circuit, and you come back sometimes to the same spot, or you kind of end the trip before that, but you're never double backing to the same area. So these are the signs to start the Langtang trek. It says way to Langtang. Here's the main road. Here's the way to go to Langtang. Here's my daughter. These are the bridges that crosses this Langtang Kola back and forth. We crossed this so many times during our hike all the way up to the terminal moraine. Here's a picture of the bridges. The bridges are used by people, by the mules. People used to take motorcycles and then bicycles. You see them riding all of this on this one. And these are prayer flags. As opposed to the prayer wheels, the prayers are written up in these flags, and the wind blows. The prayers are supposed to be carried into the wind. And again, the same principle. They live in the top of the mountain, and the wind will carry their prayers all the way around the world for peace. This is a typical village. When I call about village, this is what it looks like. This is the old Safrabasi town. Where we stayed was a new town right across the river was the old Safrabasi. A lot of the buildings are very colorful. They are dry stacked stones. They have ample amount of water. They have prayer flags. Some areas have electricity. Once again, we crossed the river. We crossed this river so many times. And it's very lush. It's very green. We were at the tail end of the spring hiking season. Pretty much, we didn't come across any hikers. Anytime the monsoon rain was going to start, and that was the end of the hiking. So some of these places have closed and people have left. So there were two ways to do this. Chinese have come in here and started a hydroelectric project there. So they cut this road. The actual trail is up here, going up. And we came back on this for a particular reason. But so we kind of crossed the river. We followed a game track, and then we realized we're in the wrong place. We kind of bushwhacked up to this road. And as I introduced my daughter, my youngest daughter is over here. She's always, like way ahead of us. And as I come up to her, she's sitting there, and she's in tears. And she started talking to me, Dad, I came up here. I was pretty short-winded. My legs are hurting, and I think I can't do this trek. This is not going to work out because I haven't prepared for it. Remember the Grand Canyon trek? She's the science girl. She was, for 6 months, she was preparing for all of this. This came out of nowhere. In the last minute, we decided we're going to go on it. She wasn't coming, but she was able to take the time off from school, finish her high school, and get on the trek. And my kids have learned some of the best things in the life about working through difficulties on a hiking trail. She can vouch for it. I thought this was a moment. I just stopped by her and I talked to her and I said, I think you can do this. We are here for you. We have done this before, but I just left her there because I know she has to work this out within herself. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I thought this may be the end of the trail for us because we can't certainly leave her here and proceed on. After about 20 or 30 minutes later, she got up, she walked by. I still remember her face. She had the attitude on the face she was going to do this. And we went on. And the reason we came along this road was this. We know there was a waterfall there. It was getting warm, and it was cold water. Take a shower, and kind of cool yourself. Here she is, back to Lauren that I know of. Now, when I use the word village, so I want to backtrack and say, when we hike in Nepal, it's different from here. Here, when we are hiking, we're on a hiking trail. People don't live. We're just going from one place to in Grand Canyon or in any other places you go. In Nepal, these are not hiking trails. These are paths that people live from village to village. We're walking on the path that they do everyday business. So the equivalent would be us walking from Bloomington to Alpine City on 35E. And the road that you saw is 35E, and then you come across villages. Now, this would be the equivalent of Bloomington. There is only 2 houses there That's a village. Usually it's a brother and sister or uncle and aunt, and the daughter will be up in the next village. It's just a few people, and this is what constitutes a village, which would be equivalent of Bloomington or Edina. There's 2, 3 houses, and that's it. So we cross again the river. Now the proper trail starts on this side of the river for the moment. And I like you to look at the English. I'm not sure what this meant or was meant to say. Way towards Safrabezi or way to, you just, you get the message. That's the way you had to go if you want to go to Safrabezi when you're returning. Here's the trail again, my youngest daughter. Now, this also is very common. There are avalanches. Rock slides come down, and they kind of mingle down and break these bridges. And I have been in several locations where they are completely broken down and hanging by thread. And this one wasn't like that. We could negotiate it. The government is not really good at fixing all of this stuff. Sometimes it kind of lasts for years or a couple of years. Nobody's actually done anything, particularly something like this that you can just kind of bypass. Now here is another village, 3 different houses, so it's a bigger village. And there's a waterfall right around here, and there's another kola coming and joining the primary kola, the Langtang kola. It's very nice, very green and lush. And we come across the third village is up there. They have dry stacked all the stones because every year when the snow melts, the river runs high and then kind of takes down the sides. So, they have dry stacked all the rocks from the river, and they put some cement, made it really nice for us. And I love the ingenuity that there's water everywhere. So somebody has cut a water bottle. Now somebody has thrown it on the trail and stuck it in there. Now the water comes through the end of it, so you can actually collect the water, rather than it's kind of all over the place that you can't really collect it. Now you can safely collect the water, disinfect it, and you can drink it. This is the town of Bamboo. It's usually 3 houses up here. This is where we stop for lunch. This is what a tea house looks like. It's 1,590 meters. There was only another couple hiking with us. And we sat over here. There was water spraying up there, and most of the food is cooked when you arrive there. You get to the house and you tell them that you want to have something to eat. They are the masters of cooking with pressure cookers. 15 minutes later, you have the food there. It's rice and lentil and some vegetables that are from the garden out here. Everything is organic. There's nothing called non-organic over there. And if you want meat, it's chicken usually. Everything is prepped there. You eat and you drink the water. You kind of stay as long as you want, and you go on. So this was our spot for lunch. Once again, from bamboo forest, we kind of moved into rhododendrons. Believe it or not, these are rhododendron trees. Now here in Minnesota, I've seen rhododendrons like 2 or 3 feet high. I've seen rhododendrons like a maple tree over there. Now in the springtime, these put out flowers out there. I mean, this place is turned into a kind of a beautiful, beautiful place. All these trees are full of rhododendrons, and with pink and red colors out there. Once again, this is another small village. I believe there is only 1 house here. Yep, and they have closed for the season because this is the end of the season. They are kind of moved out. Here's my youngest daughter, again, always ahead of us in the trail. So this is Highway 35. As I said, we're just on the way there along the river. I'm not sure this is a rockfall related to the 2015 earthquake. There was an earthquake happened in Nepal in 2015. Basically, the Langtang area was destroyed. I could not tell whether this was part of it or not. And once again, my daughter is over there. You know, she's the youngest daughter. Now, this is what it looks like. I'm not sure that this is old or new. No one to ask. So this is Bamboo. This was our destination for the night. The proper Bamboo town, or the name of the town is Bamboo, is a little 5-minute away, but we found a house that was just a lonely house. We decided to stay there. We decided to give the business to them. I don't like crowds. You know, we like to have solitude. So we stayed there. Again, the room was $2 for 2 beds. Breakfast was $3. Lunch was $4 or $5. Dinner was $4. So you can add together, it's $15 to $20 a day. That's how I came up with that. This was 2019. So here's the proper town of, Lama. That was the small house that we stayed in there. This is the proper town. And you can see it's big buildings. I just, we decided to stay in small places. Again, bamboo forest, cola. We go down to the river, Now we've gone into really thick rhododendron forest. There are some rare monkeys up here, which we never saw any one of them. But it was very shaded trail. It was a warm day. Then we come to another town, River Slide. This is 2769 meters. Again, just only one house the town consists of. So that was the end of the first one. And I'll just, if you can give me a second.
Next one for me.
So early in the town, I talked to you about the transportation in the Langtang Valley. These are the mules. The lead ones usually have an ornament in the front. In the top of it, you can always say these are the lead mules. They balance them on both sides. There's usually 1 or 2 people following them, and then they carry loads up and down the entire valley. Now this, I was told, was part of an avalanche, part of the avalanche that happened in 2015. A lot of the rock slides came along the side. Now we kind of went over the forest and we opened up into a big valley here. And these are buildings that were basically completely demolished from the earthquake that happened here. And you can see several waterfalls over there. Now this is a prayer wheel, but this is a different kind that you see in higher elevations. Basically, people have channeled water through this, and it has a kind of a fork in the bottom of it. The water runs through it, it spins it, and then it spins the wheel. Again, an interesting work that they have done there. So it kind of continuously spins and sends prayers for peace and unity around the world. So this was the town that we stopped for lunch. Again, my daughter is sitting here probably for half an hour waiting for my oldest daughter and myself to show up. She's already bored, sitting, waiting. So this is a different kind of prayers here. These are walls. They are written in Sanskrit or Nepalese language. Sometimes it's like the funeral stone of someone who died, I'm told. And you see this more higher in the elevations. And you had to walk around like a clockwise base. When you're going up, you walk on the left side. When you're coming back, You walk on this side, and you get starting to see this village that the white stuff is one of the big village that was completely wiped out. And I was told about 200 people perished, and they were buried in the avalanche here, which is the biggest village in this entire valley. These are yaks. You see them in high elevations. They are like the cousins of bison in our country. I call them, they're the John Deere of Nepal. They use them to plow. They use them to carry heavy loads. They cannot live below 10,000 feet. They are 10,000 and above. That's where they're, because they're thick fur, and they use their milk. They use their dung to burn. They use their meat to eat. They're like kind of every part of them is used for something. Here again, my daughter is over there, way ahead of us. This is a monument that was erected before we got into the town of Langtang that was demolished. There were several monuments on the way that we saw, but this was one. This was a trekking company has erected for their trekking people and also the clients who died here on the avalanche. The avalanche happened in the middle of a trekking season. This is the mule train coming the other direction, coming from the terminal moraine and coming back. You can start to see the avalanche, and then you can see the raw part of the mountain. This is 4 years after that. Basically, I was told when the earthquake happened, this whole mountain just slid off and basically buried the entire village, except one building. And here's the building in the corner here. This is the only building that survived. This entire mountain covered. I'm told they are like 100 feet. Everybody's buried over there. You can see you can't bring any heavy duty equipment up here. There are no roads up here. I mean, you can't handling this earth. Everybody was kind of left there, whoever got buried. So it was a very somber thing to walk across, basically like a burial ground there. And this is like, put it in perspective. This is like everyone in Minneapolis died. This is like the Minneapolis of this trek, of this valley. So this is a monument that's erected for all the people. Here again, we are just kind of all three of us together. Very rarely we get together because she's always ahead of every one of us. There are prayer wheels. Every foreigner who died, they had their name inscripted. There were some Americans out there. There were Japanese. There were all nationalities out there because it's a very popular trek that people do. This was the monument erected for the local people. Again, here's a picture of the yak that I was talking about. There's corn in the back. So they are building the new village uphill of the avalanche that happened over here. You can start to see the Langtang mountain up here in the background. Beautiful valley. They have horses and yaks. This is their pasture. So here comes the third kind. These are walls again with prayers and sometimes Sanskrit, philosophy written. Sometimes I'm told that when people die, their tombstone is left there. And sometimes these becomes very long. So this is a very long wall on this trail. Okay. So initially we were talking about how the rhododendrons were tall. Now you can see this is the size of the rhododendron. Now we moved into the alpine environment. We are about 10,000 feet, somewhere around 11,000 feet. The rhododendrons are just finished flowering over here in the alpine environment. And these are look like what the rhododendrons that we see in Minnesota here, the size of them. And there's a glacier here. We had to cross this one. Here's a good example of a porter. Now here's a guide. Here's a porter. Right? To become a guide, you had to go to school and you had to learn certain things, and you have a certificate. They usually carry an ID card. Here's a porter, and a porter usually carries 2 people's pack, a total of 25 kilograms, about 50 pounds. And here's a Chinese tourist here. And also he is going on the right way along the Mani Wall. So he had to go along the left side of it. More pastures, more Mani Walls, horses. So this is a close-up view of what the wall is consist of. Written in Nepalese language, very well dry stacked. This is the Langtang Kola or Langtang River, still, the melted water from the terminal moraine of the Langtang Glacier. Here's a double prayer wheels. Same thing, water is diverted through them. It's spinning, again, sending prayers. We come across the mule turn again. Here's the lead mule with the head ornament. It's a person behind there. They call it Gomta, which is a Buddhist monument. Most of the people in this part of the valley were Buddhist, were Tibet people. This is probably the biggest prayer wheel that we saw. Water was channeled from a glacier underneath it. And it is very big, and the water runs through it, and it was kind of ever so slowly turning. And very well, very beautifully painted. My daughter was referring to how the colors are there in Nepal, and this is what she was talking about. It's very bright and very stark, the colors are. It's another bridge. So we are actually, this is the sort of the terminal moraine of the Langtang Glacier. We are actually, the terminal moraine ends up somewhere here, and the glacier is melting, and this is the start of the river. So we have actually arrived at the end town in this valley. And you can see the terminal moraine, and then it's melting on the other side, and the water is coming down there. This is the start of the Langtang River. This is the town on the lateral moraine. It's called Kenjan. This is also the same size town as the one that was buried by the landslide. So this is where the actual trekking ends. And from there, you get to make what you want to do from here. Again, the hotels are closed because the season was closer to an end. Snow-capped mountains are back, prayer flags. These are some of the peaks that I could see. So behind us is a hill that I was talking to you about. A valley trek ends up going to the terminal moraine, going to the last village. Then we climb up some peaks. So this is called Kenjan Peak or Kenjan Ri. This is about 14,000 feet roughly. And this is one of the common destinations everyone go to. But there are several other things you can go from here and do. So this is one everyone does. This is the highest peak, 27 or 28,000 peak of Langtang Mountain up here. This is a peak up here. This is about 15,000 feet from the village. Your hike goes around there, and then you had to cross the river, and then it goes up on this ridge, back on this ridge, all the way up the ridge, goes back to the mountain, to the top, and you had to hike down. I'm told it's about 12 hours round trip. So you had to start the trip around 4 o'clock. The typical weather in Nepal is usually it's crystal clear in the morning, and around 10, 11 o'clock, the cloud starts rolling into the valley, and then by about 1 o'clock, you can't really see any of the peaks. This is all filled with fog or clouds. So in order to go and have a view of this, people have to leave at 4 o'clock. And before you do this 15,000 peak, the Kinjanri is the first thing to do, and just get used to the altitude before exploring this one. Another possibility is come down and walk into the valley and go further up. I'm told you can go 3 days up, but there are no villages up there. So one has to self-sufficient. You have to have your tent and cooking utensils and food and carry them, and you can just walk all the way very close to the Chinese border. That's another possibility from there to do. A lot of the time, if you read a trekking book or a guidebook, they don't give you all the opportunities, but when you go there, these are things that you can do. We only had 8 days, so we were just going to go and do the Kinjanri and return. That's all the time we had. There's another possibility is cross the drainage that I showed you and climb up through the forest, and then you can go up, higher up, through this area, and you have to high camp again, and then you have to go over a 17,000 pass, and then descend into the other side, what is called the Hilambu region, and then work your way back to Kathmandu. Again, not really done most of the time. There are no villages up there. There are no tea houses up there. So you had to hire people to do this thing. By the way, there's a lot of nomads. Sorry. So these are people who bring their yak and they travel with pasture. So they set this up tents like this. They're nomads, and then they kind of keep moving their herd with where the pasture is green. Up here, there's a very famous temple up here, Kinjan Temple, which was closed. And there's also a yak cheese factory that was closed because tourists usually go there in the evening. And as I said, the tourist season was almost nearly over. Here is the terminal moraine, and here's the Langtang Mountain, and the big glacier kind of comes along. This is the lateral moraine, and it kind of melts, and then it starts the Langtang Kola for the valley. So that night, this is 12,000 plus feet. We were doing well till the evening came around. Myself and my oldest daughter started to get altitude issues, primarily headache and nausea. So we kind of stayed there and watched ourselves. It kind of got to a point, and it didn't progress, so we decided to stay there. My youngest daughter didn't have any problem at all. The morning we woke up, we were going to go up and do the Kinjanri, and I found out overnight my oldest daughter has also, in addition to the altitude problem, has developed a GI problem. And she basically said she couldn't sleep. She was in the bathroom pretty much most of the night. So she made a decision that it's not wise for her to have altitude and also being dehydrated and also getting on a trail and hike up about 2,000 feet vertically up for this one. And she decided to stay there. I think it was a wise decision. 3,000 feet. So this is, we are hiking up. So you can see the town of Kenjan. This is the valley across the Kenjan that I was talking about, where you can hike up and go over, kind of high camp somewhere here and then go over a pass. I can see the peak by the prayer flags up there. And once again, my youngest daughter is about 20 minutes ahead of me. This is the view of the town again. Kind of tells you what something looks like when you're 17, 18,000 feet above it. So finally, I'm at the top, and here is the Langtang Mountain, and here's the glacier that forms. This is the lateral moraine on both sides. Now here's another side trip that you can do. You can climb up. The village is down here, You can come along and then walk along the lateral moraine and go all the way to the base of the mountain, or you can walk along the other side of it and kind of explore as far as you can go. If you are technically skilled to travel across glaciers and you have the equipment, you can kind of hike down. And these look small, but these are like several stories tall. And you have to be very careful because you don't know where the bridges are and you could fall into a crevasse. So these are other side trips one can possibly do there. Finally, I get up about half an hour later and I see my daughter sitting up there having a sip of tea. We didn't bring any tea and found out there was a Nepalese family already there and they were sharing tea and she was eating some local food there and it's kind of adapted her as part of their daughter, which was happening throughout the entire trip because she was always ahead. She was always hanging around with the local Tibetan people. So here we are at the top. Finally, I show up, huffing and puffing. And so there is Langtang Mountain on the background. This is what the village looks like from this Kenjan Ridge. It's about somewhere around 14,000 feet. And you can see the terminal moraine and you can see the water that kind of starts, the Kola kind of runs down this valley that we hiked up. This is the rest of the valley goes all the way up to the range of mountains over here and into China. So typically when you get to a top, you know the top because there's a lot of prayer flags and people bring prayer flags and put them, it's like a burial ground. Sometimes the families die and then they bring prayer flags and ties. So people keep tying prayer flags and you end up having a lot of prayer flags. So that's a black and white picture of the glacier. And that's where I believe, yes, I'm going to stop there.